Well, a very, very happy Wednesday, and welcome to another episode of the TNC Sports Talk. My name is Justin. Today is January 7th of 2026, and boy, didn't the world shake up with the breaking news that unraveled yesterday. We're just going to dive right deep into it, and that is the news that awoke the NFL world yesterday evening as the Baltimore Ravens and head coach Jim Harbaugh have parted ways. It came to a shock. My jaw dropped when I heard this news. And honestly, I was in the kitchen, I was cooking dinner, and I was scrambling through, trying to find maybe some shorts I can create through the news of, the sports world. And boy, this comes across the table, and I'm just like, okay, don't panic. Let's figure out what's going on. When you think of this entire year, there's kind of no warning. There was no roll call. There was no any signs that indicated that this departure would have been something that would have happened this season. Jim Harbaugh has been with the organization for 18 years, had a Super Bowl ring over a decade ago when they beat the Niners. And, you think that, hey, you have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, a top tier defense. You're kind of like, well, then what's warranted out of this departure and this separation of Baltimore Ravens firing head coach John Harbaugh? And I can't really quite think of a whole lot at first, or to the top of my head. I really had to sit down and ponder over this deal. But reality is that we just talked about it. John Harbaugh has only had one Super Bowl ring, has only had one AFC championship appearance with Lamar Jackson over the last 8 years. And, the Ravens have been up there in the category of one of the top teams in the AFC. They've competed with the Chiefs. They've competed with the Bengals when they were good. They've competed with the Bills, and they're not number one. They never been number one. And yeah, I guess you underline the year where it hasn't been too promising for the Ravens. They got off to a rough start defensively. Lamar Jackson got hurt this year and, you know, has kind of been on a struggle here as of late. And Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has had some at-fault games where his performance affected the team. And so maybe all of that, and when you put this year on top of the entire year or the entire tenure with John Harbaugh, you just kind of have to come to the conclusion that maybe it's just not working out. The Ravens have given John a elite defense. They given him and they've supported him with utmost potential quarterbacks. I mean, Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, and he's not getting any younger. And the Ravens have one of the best run games in all of football. And yet, with all of that, you can't make it to a championship. A division that was supposed to be easy this season, you fell short from a field goal. Think about that for a second. Back in August, we were talking and praising the Ravens that they should have ran away with this division, maybe have a little bit of trouble with the Cincinnati Bengals, but instead, it was a complete opposite, and they were barely hanging on up into the end. And due to some mistakes at the end of the game last Sunday night, they find themselves going home with an 8-9 record and out of the postseason. And I just, I was shocked to see that overall because, I know I've talked about this on this show, how I want to see Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin have this, run. If, the future holds this offseason, that they don't come back to football, that they maybe retire, then at least they get a chance to kind of have this postseason run one last time. But in all reality, the Ravens, definitely in this situation was on paper. I rooted for the Steelers with the expectations that the Ravens would have walked away with this victory, and they didn't. These moments are reflections of the entire tenor. And one of the things that I would, if I was a GM, I would question, John, what's going on? We're giving you everything you need to have a successful team, to win a division title, to go to the Super Bowl and give us a Super Bowl team. I like you. You're a good head coach, but what more are we supposed to do? And when things aren't working out, it's time to make a change. Unlike the Bengals, where we don't see the change being made, the Ravens are willing to make a change. So, I think it lingers to question what's next for John and for what his coaching experience holds. Now, if he wants to go get a head coaching job, I don't think that's going to be a problem whatsoever. To what team is going to be the question. And you would figure after, earlier this week, all the teams that have fired their head coaches, you have about at least a dozen teams, if not more, calling up Jim Harbaugh to at least, hey, I have an offer. Can we sit down and at least have a discussion about possibly being our future head coach for this organization? Top of the teams that just come off of mine that kind of could make fit. New York Giants is one. The Cleveland Browns. I know it's kind of hard to talk about when you're in the same division, but, these are teams that are with the right coach. You're looking to just come in, take what we have and make it work. And John's going to be able to do that. They're not, and hopefully out of one of the teams he ends up going to, he becomes he ends up taking the team to having a few years of success. I know this is a long shot to say, but I would be shocked. But yet again, I would emphasize the importance that a head coach like John Harbaugh becoming available to coach any organization in the NFL. I would be remiss not to see the Bengals at least do some sort of due diligence by giving him a phone call. I know Mike Brown has talked about, hey, we're keeping Duke Tobin. Hey, we're keeping Zach Taylor. We believe in our coaching staff for 2026. And, whatever propaganda they have the players reading off of in order to embed into the fans that this team, although despite a losing season that was embarrassing to have, that I just want to quickly forget about, the fact that a head coach like John Harbaugh, which sits at the top, beyond top, he is a Trey Hendrickson to a head coaching position right now, to those head coaches available on the market, then the Bengals need to be giving him a call, need to be at least chatting. Hey, if you were to be, would you be interested in head coaching the Cincinnati Bengals, knowing that you have Jamar Chase, knowing that you have T. Higgins, knowing that you have Joe Burrow? And if so, what is your price? What needs to be done? Because in all fairness, doesn't John Harbaugh sound like a better head coach than a Zach Taylor right now? If we're comparing apples to oranges and we're maybe tossing the John Harbaugh into the free agency of head coaches and comparing that list to maybe, I don't know, quarterbacks, right, that are available this year, Zach Taylor fits down in the middle, maybe bottom range of guys like Sam Howell, Teddy Bridgewater, Jake Browning. Those are where I categorize Zach Taylor, where he positions. Until he proves me otherwise, that's where I categorize Zach Taylor in his position. John Harbaugh, he's up there with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he is the cap. He is the pivotal point. There's no other coach out there on the market for that reason. And it's not like John Harbaugh has lost a step, unlike Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is back in the early 2000s, back in the late 90s. He has not adapted to the coaching of this generation. John Harbaugh is more relevant in that field. So I don't see it's going to be difficult to get a challenge. It's trying to find the right team. Is the New York Giants the right team that John Harbaugh can come in and take over and lead them to a division title, because it's been quite some time since New York has been back to the playoffs. We go back to Eli Manning, and we've gotten through some quarterbacks since then. You categorize a team like, the Cleveland Browns in the instance where they've gone through over a farmer dozen of, quarterbacks over the last 6 years and incapable of making a difference since Baker Mayfield. The other option would be, what would be the interest of John joining and becoming the head coach for the Arizona Cardinals, playing in the same, not in the same division, but playing out there on the West Coast along with his brother Jim with the Chargers. The Raiders, perfect example. Raiders are complete garbage. If you're looking for a rebuild, if you're looking to start somewhere for a rebuild, maybe it's not a quarterback position. Maybe it's a head coach. Bring in John Harbaugh to the Las Vegas Raiders. Have him, refresh this team. Go draft a quarterback. Go draft players. Build players. Get his insights. Get his crew in there and see what happens. I mean, you're gonna have sold out crowds everywhere you go, especially in the AFC West. Especially when it comes down to the Chargers and the Raiders, who will compete against each other for 2 years. That's money making right there. End of story. John Harbaugh is going to the Raiders. Now, it's not if he's going to get a new head coaching position. It's when. I don't think that John Harbaugh should go down to college football. I think he, is contempt and better, as good as he's going to get at the NFL. I think, there's some solid teams out there that could show interest, that should show interest. I think that the Bengals should at least show some sort of interest in a possible deal, because that will I think when you, as a fan of Cincinnati, as a fan of Bengals football, when you look and you can make some sort of change that can impact your organization tremendously over the next few years, because the clock is ticking, you guys. The clock is ticking for guys like Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins to win themselves a championship, to win themselves a Super Bowl before this trio separates themselves. And I'll tell you this, and one thing, words of wisdom here as a Bengals fan: do not sit, if you're Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, or T. Higgins, if you're listening to this, do not sit your entire career in Cincinnati if you do not see success over the next 2 to 3 years, or even 1 to 2 years. Do not sit there. Do not allow it to be too late to jump up and go to a new team where maybe you're not as good as you once was. Your prime is right behind you, and they're buying you for your prime, but it's not there. And a matter of fact, it doesn't help that organization win. Do not wait until it's too late to go to a winning championship. As much as listen, I love Joe Burrow being a lifetime Bengals fan. I love player. I love Jamar Chase and T. Higgins being lifetime players. I am not a huge fan of these trades and deals, because that is what's changed this, the history of football and baseball, over the past 20, 25 years. But if you have the ability to go to a team that can win, and win now, go to it. What does that mean for, let's say, the Baltimore Ravens? Because this is a team that is now indicating, okay, our next coach is going to come in, and whoever that may be, hopefully it's as equal, if not better, than John Harbaugh. But what does that look like? Does it look like, is it with or without Lamar Jackson? As we explained, Lamar Jackson has been with the team for 8 years. He's had an impeccable defense to keep him into the games. He's had an incredible run game. He's been able to move. He's had an awesome offensive line that I wish the Bengals had. that can allow him to move out of pocket, allows him to move anywhere he wants to go, be able to use his feet. And one thing that we've seen out of Lamar Jackson is injuries. Does the Ravens' future look like something with Lamar Jackson? It's the same question that you ask John, is what more can we give you? You got Zay Flowers, Rashard Bateman. I mean, you have it all, and yet you come up short in the final game of the season. You have only been to the AFC Championship one time. You're allowing a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who many believe are washed up, ready for this reset of an organization, but Mike Tomlin keeps them relevant in, the NFL. Aaron Rodgers has signed and took them to a postseason. It doesn't look pretty, but for not just the Ravens alone, but the players inside Baltimore's organization, this was a team that was talked and highly praised to be one of the top elite teams in the AFC this year. And yet we see the Ravens fall short of the playoffs when they could have easily ran away with this division. If you would have, I understand there's this own story with the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe it's the end of a dynasty. Travis Kelce becomes, I think, a free agent this year. Patrick Mahomes has a lot of recovery to do. They're not the same defensive team that they used to be. Andy Reid is also, it feels like there's going to be a shift here at some point with Kansas City, and it doesn't look like they have anything to hold on left. It was a little shocking to see Kansas City in their season the way they did, and as far below 500 the way they did. But even in a competitive division with the Chargers and the Broncos, the Kansas City Chiefs, there was a little bit more understanding to, okay, well, there's no contingency. The Ravens had the opposite. It wasn't like Kansas City was going to go in and we knew, hey, they were going to dominate it. We went into the season saying, look, prove me wrong, and they proved us wrong. The Ravens, there was almost no excuse for the lack of success they had. So, where does John Harbaugh go this season, this offseason? What team can pick him up? Who wants him the most? And for those who already have a head coach, is it worth reconsidering their options if John Harbaugh is available? Specifically talking about the Bengals. So this is a story that I will be following through and providing much more updates as time progresses, and we will see how it unfolds. All right, great way to open up our show. I want to discuss and jump into the AFC and NFC playoffs. And I want to specifically dive into just kind of where I feel these teams lie in a chance of going and winning a Super Bowl this season. And there are teams that are expected, and they prevailed to be in the playoffs. I think we saw a little bit more of the teams that, you knew they were going to be good. You could have anticipated them performing well. It could have gone either way. And we're just a little surprised how well they turned out. And then there's teams that just honestly surprised you out of the blue. And so let me start off with the AFC. And coming in at number 7 at the bottom of my list has to be the Houston Texans. This is a team that I expected them to play 500 football. And that wasn't my issue. But they kind of made that late season run, slid right in, took advantage of a Daniel Jones injury with the Colts, and took advantage of some opportunities that teams like the Chiefs and the Bengals given them, and slid into a wild card spot. I expected them to be a little bit better than they were now, but they quickly showed us that they struggled throughout the year. So heading into this postseason, they're out on Monday night in Pittsburgh. I feel like I'm going to struggle to want to root for the Texans to pull through. There's a little bit more momentum from Pittsburgh to pull through, and I just don't see them going far into the AFC playoff picture. At number 6, and this is a one that in my notes, I have it one way, but I'm going to reverse it. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's interesting about the AFC South, because it's honestly, it's been talked about for years. It's one of the bottom divisions in my opinion, out of all 8 divisions in the NFL. And it seems like any team has these equal opportunity to win this division at any time of the year. So I want to be specific about that, because yes, when we begin each season, all 32 teams have an equal opportunity to win the division and go to the playoffs and possibly win a Super Bowl. But in the AFC South, throughout at least 3/4 of the year, it's up for grabs for any year. There's not a indication of one team that's going to run away with this, division. And even like we saw this year, we saw that one team in the Colts, and we saw it all come crumbling down. Jacksonville, Houston, all took advantage of that. But just because Jacksonville was able to slide in and walk away with the division, yes, they have a home game on Sunday against the Bills. How far do you see them go with Trevor Lawrence? Jacksonville Jaguars have been a hit or miss over the last couple of years. They haven't been well established. And I'm still waiting for a team since Peyton Manning era with the Colts in the AFC South, for a team to come in and dominate for 3 to 5 years. So I feel when it comes down to playoff territory, Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars have their work cut out for them when they take on the Bills this Sunday. But they're at home, and that's what leads me putting them at number 6, but I still don't see them going far. There's teams better than them. Coming in at number 5 for me has to be the Los Angeles Chargers, and that's going to strictly be the reasonings because of Justin Herbert's injury. They got off to a really good start, and I remember back in the early month of November, we were even talking about the Chargers being one of those teams that could find themselves out of the postseason in the way that they played post the 3-0 start. Now, I kind of expected the Chargers to easily watch right into the playoffs, even a chance to win the division. That didn't happen, but now they have to sit here and take on the Patriots. They're at the number 7th seed. They take on number 2, the New England Patriots. It's a Sunday night game. You're out there on the East Coast. And boy, regardless of the change of the change of the atmosphere, Drake May has this MVP of a season. Does that carry over into January football? So I feel like it's a really equal balance between the coaching, between the players on and off the field. And I just question, maybe they could get away with the Patriots, but then afterwards they'd be visiting the Broncos at the 7th seed. So how they would have the ultimate task to take on the ultimate teams early on. And if they could survive and go to the AFC Championship, who does that look like? Or what does that look like? Is it the Steelers? Is it the Texans? Is it the Bills? Is it the Jaguars? And I can already tell you right now, I think their struggle will be against the 2 of those 4 teams, and they'll be on the road on all 3 games anyway. So the Bills or the Steelers, in my opinion, will give them a challenge. So a lot of things, in my opinion, would have to go their way. Coming in at number 4, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, look, it's a little bit of a biased opinion, wanting to see Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers take this as far as they can. Do I think it's a Super Bowl caliber team? Absolutely not. But it's all about who your opponents are. And right now, they are taking on the Texans Monday night. They just came away with a game that they should have lost, but they've also shown the world that they are capable of staying in the game in the late quarters. And that's going to be one of the key things heading into the postseason. Who plays 4 to 5 quarters of football? Not just 4.5, not 3.5, not 3. Don't just play 4. You got to be able to play 5 or even if not 6. And those are the teams that are able to win the game. Saying right now, Pittsburgh, I think, has nothing to lose because they've already accomplished more than what people expected them to accomplish, but they have everything to gain. And that is not only proving their fan base wrong, okay? Just remember, a month ago, we're talking about firing Mike Tomlin, right? Proving their fan base wrong, but proving the entire nation wrong about how the Pittsburgh Steelers should be viewed as. So they come in at number 4. Number 3 has to be a team that has the most experience at the moment in the postseason, and that's the Buffalo Bills, which is surprising here, considering that the Chiefs are not in the postseason. You know, we go through this each and every year with the Bills. We've seen them have good moments. We've seen them have bad moments. They're ranked number 6. They're in Jacksonville. I could see this being a comfortable win. But then their challenge starts in the divisional round. Maybe they're taking on the Steelers or the Texans, or maybe they're taking on the Broncos. They're also a team who's going to have to face adversities this postseason the further they advance, because the only way they're going to get a home game is if they face the Chargers in the AFC Championship. So, with what I've seen throughout the course of this year, I think that they have, as a playoff mode, they have the best chance, the most experience to give themselves the best chance of winning and advancing. But the way that I've seen them carry themselves throughout the year makes me question. Now, look, it's not about how you play throughout the year. That first part's just about getting to the playoffs. Now it's about how you finish off the season. It's cold. Buffalo typically can perform better in the colder climate weathers. Jacksonville, whatnot, weather-wise, fall, winter time. I just don't know when it comes down to the Patriots and Broncos and how good they have been if the Jaguars can make it and pull through. They got a lot to overcome. At number 2, I'm going to see the New England Patriots. This was a team that I expected to be a good team. How much more of a good team I expect them to be? I did not expect them to win a division, and I surely did not expect them to hold the number 2 seed in the NFC. And that's a big leverage for the AFC. And look, I would love to see an AFC championship right now against the top 2 teams in the AFC, which between the Broncos and the Patriots. But, you know, this was a difficult decision. I could see either team being in the top 1, but I have the Broncos in the top 1 because the Broncos in this case, we see Bo Nix, Sean Payton, everything's just coming together. You have a tremendous defense, and Bo Nix has come a long way from the beginning of the season, and I feel like they have the advantage here at home. The altitude plays a factor, and they have the advantage of making it all the way. So that's why I have the Broncos at number 1, the Patriots at number 2 here in my top 7 list of the chances of them actually being able to accomplish and making it to a Super Bowl. Let's move our position over to the NFC here. Coming in at number 7 was the team who, in my opinion, slipped right in and impressed a lot of people late going. That's the Carolina Panthers. You know, they really showed a different side of themselves here at the back end of the year. I mean, given Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers, who were expected to have almost 10 wins this year, you know, they fell short. But the Panthers, you know, you're going up against top dogs. And here was the story for Tampa Bay in 2025-2026 season. The story was, well, Baker Mayfield, you want to be considered as an elite quarterback, as an elite team, and be a force to be reckoned with. You're going to have to beat the top teams, and you're not the top team. So the Eagles, in my opinion, are a top team. The Rams are a top team in the division. The Packers are a top team in the division. I'd even include the Sinners. And Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers struggled with winning those games. They've lost actually a handful of them. And maybe that kind of got the best of them heading into the back end of this year. But Carolina slipped right in one of the division. I don't see. The question is that, I think Carolina is still a progressing team. They still have room for improvement. I think this is great to see where they're at, and it's a true test when they take on the Rams on Saturday afternoon. But I don't see them making it too much further than a wild card, possibly a division championship or division round. At number 6 is the Chicago Bears, a team that I have maybe grown. You talk about, so this was interesting to me. The Bears are talking about leaving Chicago, possibly going to Indiana. And at the same time, they're having success. And we know this. If you have success, as soon as you have it, get what you want, and that way you can just rest. And we've seen it with the Raiders. We've seen it with the Chargers. The Chiefs are moving to Kansas City. And the Bears haven't even completed this season yet. And if you're Chicago, I'd be furious. I'm furious. This is kind of that stamp of not only to the NFL, but to the history of Chicago, to the ownership of the Bears, to kind of say, hey, we want to go as far as we can to, because I think we want to stay in Chicago, given. But at the same time, they're coming up against the Packers this Saturday night. They're at home, but the Packers have a little bit more experience in the postseason. They've been there, they've done that. They're more recently relevant in the postseason, and I've seen the Bears struggle against some of these tough games. So this is that put up or shut up moment in the playoffs where it's all good. You could have struggle or you could have success in the regular season. This is where it counts. Make it count. Coming in above them is the Green Bay Packers, and that's another team that, has a nice chance of don't let the record fool you. Yes, there are some competition coming up here in the NFC ahead of them, and if they win, they're the number 7 seed, so they're going to have to be on the road during the playoffs, but their adversity comes from either then the Eagles or it's going to have to either come from, I'm going to say, who was it? Was it going to be the Bears, which is the first and foremost? If they win this game, they'll have to go face the Seahawks. So because I have the Seahawks down here in the middle of the list. So they're going to have to face the Seahawks, and that would be an interesting game in Seattle. And then if they can win, they have to play the NFC Championship on the road against either one of the other teams. So I could see the Packers going a divisional round, even the championship round. As far as going back to a Super Bowl, they would, I think it becomes a will, kind of a, grunt work where you have to put in your dues. You're going to be exhausted by the time you get to the championship game, and how much are you willing to survive? How much more do you have in the tank? San Francisco is coming in at number 4 for me. They're a team along with the Rams and the Seahawks, all of them. They battle it out for the West, and it's kind of really hard because all of them deserve in the 2, 3, 4 spots, and that's what I have. I have the Rams at number 2, the Seahawks at number 3, and the 49ers at number 4. The reason why is because the Rams, they just take care of business. And what I like about the Rams right now is this is not new territory for them. They've been in this field. They're relaxed. I think they're the more relaxed, and that's why they're at number 2, the Seahawks. They have been the most impressive out of all 3 of them given. But I think now you're, hey, Sam Sam Darnold finally overcame that hump, but now they're going to have to find a way to survive. And yes, they have home field advantage, and yes, just business as usual this season. Sure, but you're going to be on a bye week. You're going to play either the Packers, the Niners probably, or even we could find them facing the Rams. And those aren't going to be easy opponents, whether you're at home or you're away. So, I mean, how they can even face the Panthers, I guess. So the point is that, this is going to be a challenge, regardless if this is a home or not, but they're going to be, they deserve this challenge because they've had quite some anticipation success this year. Coming in at number, with the 49ers, they've dealt with injuries. Yeah, they've been to the postseason more than the Seahawks here lately, but unfortunately, we have to encounter all the other teams. Coming at number 1 is the Eagles, defending Super Bowl champions. I don't care what this season held. I don't care what happens. They are a pure force to be reckoned with. I think that when it comes down to the playoffs, they could just switch on that light and be able to play, and they're going to have their work cut out for them. They take on the 49ers this weekend, but they are one of the favorite teams to make it all the way to a Super Bowl. We talk about the Eagles, the Rams, the Bills. They've most recently been to championship games. Can they get back? And if so, it's going to be who has pulled through. All right. So before we get into our last segment of the episode, I kind of wanted to just talk a little bit about Enlighten Studios' upcoming theater production called Grassroots. As you know, I have been able to get the opportunity to work with them this year in their social media content, trying to put together videos and publications to promote their upcoming events in 2026 and talk about their performing arts company that continues to grow in the city of Cincinnati. And we just launched a new podcast available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, called Light in the City. Just launched a podcast yesterday that began called The Enlighten Express, and it provides you all news and events related to Enlighten Studios. And it's a short podcast that just keeps you upgoing, sharing experiences as we go along and preparation and promotions for their upcoming events. And one of their upcoming events this February kicks off a full calendar year of theater productions for Enlighten Studios. That is, they have 8 scheduled productions this year, including 2 in the month of May, and the return of last year's performance, Dinner with a Few Sides of Drama. Well, this year they kicked things off with their theater production called Grassroots, about family, faith, forgiveness, and the courage to face the truth. This production is set in the 1950s, giving you an ideal look when a black family moves into a white neighborhood and has to come with the face of truth from the neighborhood. You'll see a lot of things develop and take place. And I'm really excited as we get closer to dates, as their productions and rehearsals come closer, and we get our hands on and behind the experience of working with the cast members. I love everyone's fun. They're full with energy, energetic, and it's a fun time. It's not just about business. It's about delivering the message and being able to enjoy what you're doing, and they really bring the most out of it. So I can't wait for this production to be seen, and it will be held in Cincinnati at the Archville Theater this February 20th through March 1st, and tickets available at tickettailor.com. Get your tickets today, reserve your seats. There are 8 performances over those 2 weekends, and I want to see you out there. I want to hear your opinions, hear your thoughts, and see how Enlighten Studios has been embedded onto you in your life down the road. So be sure to get your tickets today, and I want to see you out there in the upcoming events that Enlighten Studios has. With that being said, my last segment, I wanted to focus about our top 5s. I know I've been asking people over the last few weeks to start thinking about their top 5 moments, their top 5 matches, their top 5 wrestlers, so on and so forth. And Bleacher Report has, cage side seats, Bleacher Report, wrestling.com, what all that, all the, all those websites, all those podcasts, they have their own top 5 moments. And so I was kind of thinking about, well, in 2025, as WWE continues to revolve, what was my top 5 wrestling matches, specifically in WWE? Now, I'm not biased. I'm not saying that AEW doesn't have top 5 matches, or TNA or Ring of Honor or New Japan or Lucha Libre, whatever promotion you watch. But my narrow conversation in WWE specifically is because I watch WWE primarily. I'm not saying that none of the other product, I'm not saying NXT, I'm not saying TNA or AEW is bad product. They're good product. I have struggled over the years to get behind constantly keeping up to date and following their storylines, their style of wrestling, and their matches. So it's nothing against them. It's only because I want to be able to give you my top 5 matches for the matches in the wrestling that I watch. So I expect this list to be completely different than yours. And I'm sure you may disagree in a couple of my decisions, and that's fine. I will give you a reason why they're in my top 5. And, that leaves room for discussion. I did want to include 2 matches. Well, I wanted to include actually just one match here that was worth making this list that didn't make this list. And it's actually, well, let me refer. Yeah, let me do that. So the match that didn't make this list, that just kind of came shy, had to be Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens at Elimination Chamber. I think last year had some really impressive buildups heading into WrestleMania. And these were 2 best friends that, if you follow their careers, they have laughed together, they have loved together, they were former tag team champions at one point. This dates all the way back to the independent wrestling companies. And in NXT, we saw what this chapter continue, grow, and they've had feuds. And earlier in last year at Elimination Chamber, we saw one of the latest chapters of this rivalry turn them loose in a unsanctioned match in front of fellow Canadians. This took place at the Toronto's Rogers Center, and it really created match. These are 2 men that that maybe you wouldn't until is at the top of the division. Maybe they're not built. Maybe they don't carry that stamina. I've always struggled to find Sami Zayn in this conversation, but through and through, same thing can be said with Kevin Owens. He's also dealt with an injury, and we hope he he recovers promptly, and we could possibly see an in-ring return from him at some point down the road. But these 2 men have left it out on the line. So I encourage you, if you haven't gotten a chance to go watch that match. Another notable that did not make the list was John Cena versus AJ Styles, kind of just resembling back to WWE versus TNA, showcasing all the moves at Crown Jewel. I will throw in one more match, and that would be John Cena versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, and that did not make my list, and you'll know why here in a little bit. Coming in at number 5 has to be the tag team triple threat match on SmackDown April 5th between the Street Profit, Motor City Machine Guns, and DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. This was still fresh when Motor City Machine Guns came into the WWE. They were a hot team at the time, shaking up and elevating the tag team division on SmackDown, and that's what it was focused on. DIY was another team that we've desperately wanted to see push up to the WWE, and yet they've never been able to really establish themselves and gotten over up until this moment, as well as the Street Profits that, they're a great tag team, and we're just trying to find the right place. The tag team division has always been a struggle point. And I mean, just look at what took place earlier this week, last week actually, when we found new tag team champions in the Usos, and they're making a claim and putting a word out for the tag team roster. The tag team division always tries to find a way to stay relevant. Sometimes they fail, sometimes they succeed. Well, this match right here, throughout the course of WrestleMania and all the matches that they've seen with success, this match ended up in my top 5 because it helped push the 2025 tag team division for the year. And so that came in for my number 5. At number 4, I have to throw in a Worlds Collides match where Chad Gable took on El Hero del Vikingo. Now, it was a major announcement that WWE and AAA has then started partnerships and all that fun stuff, ownerships. And WWE has focused over the years or throughout this past year to promote AAA wrestling. And we've seen Rey Mysterio, we've seen Penta, Rey Fenix, we've seen Chad Gable, we've also seen so on and so forth. We've seen WWE talent, Los Garza, Santos Escobar, go down to help promoting their business, and we've seen some come up to NXT and to the WWE roster. Well, in my opinion, this cross-passing crossworlds is a big monument for the WWE. One thing that we've seen this year are those monuments and elevated again this year. WWE is adapting once again to the wrestling world, being able to work on those those deals where they have NXT working and cross-promoting with TNA and vice versa for WWE and AAA. It only leaves for what's to come down the road, and it leaves the door open. Chad Gable has really stepped up this year. It sucked that he got hurt and he had to be taken out of action, but it also pivoted that beginning of, scenarios like the Americanos that has kind of been able to develop more since his absence. So this match, I think, between Vikingo and Gable kind of begins and really illustrates what we see out of both sides with AAA and then Chad Gable individually. Coming in at number 3, I want to highlight the WrestleMania match where we saw Bianca Belair, Io Sky, and Rhea Ripley have battled this year's WrestleMania. And this is not just a singles match, created that can put the women's division on the map for 2025. A lot of matches were there that I saw that was impressive to me. I even liked the Tiffany and Charlotte Flair matches. But what I kind of gotten away from this was the fact that the women's revolution is thriving and is actually getting a push once again compared to what we've kind of seen it settle in over the years, which has put a notice on the entire roster and the entire WWE that it doesn't matter who you are, if you have what it takes to compete and put on excellent matches to main event, then you're going to get the spotlight, male or female. And I think this is just one of the matches that highlights and keys all the other great female matches for 2025. Coming in at number 2, to me, is going to be the WrestleMania match, triple threat match between Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk. A lot was going on in this situation. You have Paul Heyman kind of lingered in the mix of this surprise turn on both CM Punk and Roman Reigns to help Seth Rollins, the visionary, walk away victorious. And this prompted the Vision, which ultimately lined up for the buildup of guys like Bronson Reed and Logan Paul and Braun Breaker especially. We're kind of sitting here emphasizing, well, these are the new set of guys that are going to be running our WrestleManias, hopefully, in 5-year spans. So this kind of kickstarted it. This kind of pushed it along. And I think this is one of the big highlights. Whether we talk about John Cena's retirement year, whether we talk about The Rock's, on and off appearances early on to help make WrestleMania what it was. When you look back at 2025, if you take away John Cena, you have the vision that has that is growing, that it continues to grow, and it helps promote and push the future stars today. That's what this match opened up the door for. And my number one match has to be John Cena versus Cody Rhodes in a street fight for the WWE Championship at SummerSlam. We want to highlight John Cena's retirement match, and that's been the pivotal all year long. And you can say he's had some incredible matches, and I would agree with you. But you want to find that one match that defined John Cena's year in a match concept. It comes from Cody Rhodes, this second dispute between Cody Rhodes and John Cena, where John Cena, who has turned heel earlier on in the year, finally realizes where he belongs. And it was this match that brings him back to track. Now, look, Cody Rhodes was in a crossfire. Not only he gave up he had to face this ultimate decision by The Rock. He had to face John Cena, which he lost, and he was a heel at the time. Think about this. Your idol, your person you look up to in the WWE, your locker room leader for 20 plus years, especially when you first came into the industry, he turned on you. He disrespects you. He doesn't like you. He doesn't appreciate you, and he doesn't acknowledge you as anyone more just other than not a real champion, and you have to face him at the grandest stage of them all. Well, then Cody Rhodes makes this climb right back to earning himself another championship. This is ways of, hey, I gotta conquer you. I need to beat you into to realization that what you're doing here is wrong. And that's what he did. It was a great match. It was a wonderful match. I think it highlights, because then John Cena gets the opportunity to just roll on in to the back end of the year, do what he wants to do, give back to the younger talent, and be able to have a walk-off into the sunset moment. Even though he lost to Gunther, he got a chance to finish out on his own terms. So that is my top 5. What is your top 5? Leave a comment down below. I will put this on Facebook so you guys could comment. And I'm really interested to hearing what you guys have to say. But that is all the time I have for you guys on this program. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you guys are listening to us on our audio platforms, whether that is Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, or anywhere you get this your podcast, be sure to download and put those notifications on for the TNC Sports Talk. If you guys are watching us on our YouTube page, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we will be back again tomorrow talking more sports with you guys. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, take care.